For this week's project, I made 2 baby rattles. It was a very special project, not necessarily because of what I made, but rather who I made it for. Stay tuned at the end and see exactly who it was made for. So as I mentioned, I made 2 baby rattles. The first one here is a piece of apple wood. It has been in my kiln and drying. Apple is very prone to cracking, so you do have to handle it carefully. So the first step is just using my bowl gouge and making it round. I did reduce the diameter a little bit as I wanted it a little bit smaller than what I initially had here. So I am turning it between centers here. I do not have it in my chuck. I've got it on a spur drive, but I'm just doing as much work as I can here. So here what I'm doing is I'm marking the center line and the 2 ends. And that will just help me get the round shape. So I don't want to touch that center line. That part's going to stay at the diameter it is for now. And then I'll start working the ends down. So once I've got the middle diameter set, I know my end diameters. It's pretty easy by eye to make a perfect sphere. You can see the apple's cutting very well. I won't say it's wet. It was about 15 to 20%. So it wasn't real dry, but it wasn't wet either. But apple does typically cut very well. I get nice long shavings coming off of it. Now you can start to see it getting more of a true spherical shape. I'm just going to run my scraper over it now. That helps remove some of those lines from the gouge, and it also just helps me control the shape a little bit better. On the left-hand side, I need to come down a little bit more because it's not round yet. I could have made up a pattern for this, a jig to see whether or not it was perfectly round, but I think in the end, you'll hopefully agree that I did a fairly good job at making it round. For those non-woodturners and those that haven't watched my channel, I was using my scraper there. Scrapers don't remove as much wood as quickly as a gouge, which cuts. A scraper scrapes, but a scraper can give you a smoother surface. So obviously now I have my tailstock removed. So at some point here, and I didn't point that out, I did switch from turning between centers to putting a tenon on the piece and mounting it in my chuck. Again, the advantage of that is not only does it hold it more secure, but I don't need the tailstock support, which allows me to work all the way around the end of this piece. I'm not happy with the shape yet. It's a little egg-shaped, but that's what I'm doing here now, just rounding up the end, shortening it a bit, which will make it a bit rounder. Just do a check here. It's looking better. It's probably a little bit bigger in diameter than it is in length, so I can reduce that. I can't take this end down too far yet because obviously that is what's holding it and driving it. So I'll just take it down far enough that I can see the shape, and then I'll do that at the very end, obviously. But I want to leave a little bit of a thicker stem there because I do have to drill it out and turn the inside, and that does put a bit of force on it. So if I made the piece on the left-hand side too small, then there'd be a chance it could break off. I never mentioned, but I think I'm turning this close to 2000 RPM, so it's turning fairly fast. That does a couple things. It doesn't necessarily remove wood any quicker, but it helps give you a smoother surface. My scraper wasn't doing a great job at removing those lines, so now I've gone back to my bowl gouge, but instead of using it like a traditional gouge, I'm pulling it and turned over on the side using it as a scraper, and it's doing a better job at removing wood and removing those lines. Now the hollowing out process begins. In order to make my life a little bit simpler, I'm going to use a drill. And two things you'll notice here. Number one, it is smoking. That's most likely just steam from moisture in the wood, and the drill's getting a little hot, so it's creating steam. It's not burning at this point, but rather just steam. I've also made a mark on the drill bit itself, so I know how deep to go. I don't want to drill all the way through at this point, obviously. I'll just double check the depth. Can go a little deeper yet. This jig is a little more accurate than what I did a moment ago. I think I'm good there. So because this is a fairly short, it's only about 2.5 inches deep, I can just use traditional tools. Here I'm using my spindle gouge to hollow this out. The spindle gouge did a really good job at removing material inside this. Apologize, that's a little out of focus. It's focusing on my head rather than on the rattle itself. I didn't show it all because it's hard to see, but this is hollowed out. It's round. It's fairly thin. I may thin it out a little more, but I'm going to just throw it in the kiln to let it dry. It's 15 to 20% moisture. I would have thought it would have been beyond the cracking zone, but it is apple. Apple cracks when you look at it. So I'm getting some very fine micro cracks right here. They may be as much stress as anything else. This was a bark inclusion, so it's cracked a bit. So I put some CA glue on it, and I'll put that in my kiln. I may coat the outside with anchor seal before I put it in my kiln. That won't take long. A couple days in the kiln, it'll be fine. A couple days is about all I have because it is a Christmas gift. So we'll go ahead and get that in the kiln. For those that are quite astute in wood, this is no longer apple. This is the second one that I've done, but I've finished the outside of this and I'm just ready to cut it off. And there you go. It's been sanded and burnished and I'm pretty pleased with the overall shape. Now to move on to the handle for the rattle itself. Now, the thing that I want to make very sure of here is that this tenon that I'm turning here now is a good fit on the opening of the baby rattle itself. I'm still a little big, so I'll go back and make some very fine cuts just to reduce that diameter a tiny bit so that I've got a good snug fit on the rattle itself. I do not want this coming off. I am going to glue it, but that's a pretty good fit there. Once I have the tenon turned, now I'll concentrate on shaping the handle itself. Keeping in mind this is for a baby, so it can be fairly small. I think I figured that about the size of my pinky finger would be about right, and I know that because they can get a good hold on that. So I used a combination here of my bowl or spindle gouge and my skew. Skew is good for fine-tuning any details that I have, although the handle was fairly simple, just a straight taper from top to bottom. Again, nice snug fit and good proportions on handle length versus size of the rattle itself. I decided to go with no finish on this, so I'm burnishing it here. I've sanded it up to 600, and now I'm just taking some shavings and holding them on at a high speed and letting them burnish into the wood itself. That'll seal it and give it a nice shiny gloss, but no actual finish on it. I should mention there's a lot of food safe finishes here because I do know obviously the baby is going to have this in their mouth, and there are a number of food safe finishes. Mineral oil would be a good choice. Tongue oil, once it dries, is another good choice. But in this case, I just decided to leave it natural. The wood is very pretty just all on its own, and it doesn't need any additional darkening, and just a nice burnished surface was good for this project. One of my viewers mentioned that they have to practice on this, and that's one-handed turning removal of a piece. You can see I was holding it with one hand and cutting it with my skew on the other. When it comes to rattles, you've got a few choices of what you put inside. You can use beans, rice, any beads at all. I've ended up using glass beads. They are a little more expensive, but they make a really nice, loud, clanging sound. And for this project, it's really what I wanted. Keeping in mind, the other thing is the thinner you can make the walls of the rattle itself, the better the acoustics will be as well, and also the lighter it will be. This one is fairly thin, probably about 3 millimeters, and fairly uniform throughout. You don't want to make it too thin. You do not want the rattle to break and therefore exposing the beads, but this is a good compromise. It's thin enough for good acoustics, but thick enough to be strong enough that it won't break. And now I just glue the handle in place. And that will finish this rattle up. And it sounds very nice. Here you can see the two rattles. The one on the left is actually a spalded maple, and the one on the right is the apple. Apple was a little bit bigger, and both of them have a nice cherry handle. I also engraved them both with the granddaughters' names on them. Stay tuned for some pictures of them enjoying their rattles. And thank you for watching. We were very blessed this summer to have two granddaughters. This is the first one. This is Gracie. She's 5 months old. And this is Everly, and she's 4 months old. So far, they really seem to enjoy their rattle. And we enjoy seeing them play with them.